Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever and wherever you are. Thanks for watching. In this last episode of Hendrix Gentry's life, we see the results of the many twists and turns in the career losses, the long hauls, the looking for work, the roadblocks, the dead ends. By the time Claude was a grown man, Claude, by the way, was Hendrix's son, in case you're jumping in the middle of the movie, he was courting a girl named Ilse that went to their South Side Chicago church. Now, Hendrix has softened into the kind of father who drove his son down to City Hall to give consent for an underage wedding license, which was at the time 21 years old. He let himself be fooled by a fake broken clutch just to see his son's face when the prank landed. He patched up a fender bender without complaint because the girl who'd caused it was, in Claude's word, very special to him and Claude's future wife. That's a different man than the one shoveling coal into steam trains and manning the picket line while trying to save his career. Life had worn some of the edges off, but the core of him, the man who would and could do any job, any hour, any weather to keep his family fed and housed, never changed from Shawnee to Garrett to Chicago on the Southwest Side. He just kept working. That example and ethic was passed on to his son, my grandfather, Claude, the boy who watched all of it happen. And he helped his father cut trees, split wood, pick cotton, whatever they had to do in those lean years when there was no other way to make a dollar. Claude grew up to become the man who made himself so indispensable, so capable, that the Army considered him too valuable to serve in World War II. Claude manned the home front. He helped engineer, develop, and test the aircraft and equipment that became the arsenal of democracy. Claude never said, in so many words, what he learned from his father's story, but he didn't have to. You can see it in the shape of his choices. Claude's dogged search for work as someone graduating from high school during the peak of the Depression, the constant upskilling, the willingness to go wherever the work was, the optimism to get married and start a family during those hard years of the Great Depression really can't be ignored. Hendrix, who built a future for 15 years and had it taken away from him in a strike, raised a son who made certain that no one would ever take his future away. And that's the elixir at the end of this particular hero's journey, if you want to call it that. Hendrix never saw himself as the hero of his own story, at least not by the standards that the world would have measured it by. He didn't get the promotion. He didn't get the secure trade he'd spent his 20s and 30s building toward. What he got instead was harder, and in the end, maybe more valuable. He held a family together through a broken career, a cross-country string of layoffs, and the worst economic collapse in American history, without ever once letting his children go hungry or go to sleep without a roof over their heads. And he handled all of that with grit, and he refused to be a one-trick pony. The instinct to make him useful in any weather, in any way, went straight down to a son who took it somewhere Hendrix couldn't even imagine, into the instrument rooms of the jet age, the nuclear age, and the infancy of the space program. Hendrix Gentry almost became an engineer. His son became an electrical engineer, a term the world didn't even have in 1913 when a fireman on the Chicago Rock Island and Pacific brought a newborn boy home to a little house on South Eden Street in Shawnee, Oklahoma. Hendrix's story is in a way the story of America. We get knocked down, we dust ourselves off, we get back up and go to work. Lessons learned are lessons applied. And I wonder, how many other Hendrixes are out there, forgotten in the dustbin of history, maybe just an entry in a Bible under the family tree section, but they also had that quiet resolve that still echoes through their families generations later. If you haven't seen Claude's own story yet, or the video on Ananias, the Confederate soldier who started all of this 3 generations back, please go watch them. It's truly informative. This whole family thing makes the most sense when you see all 3 men standing in a line, knowing it started with a couple of young men looking for adventure in 1677, shipping off to a new world for king and crown. Thank you for watching, and God bless.